issues.
There's traps.
Okay. I got it good. Yeah. Okay. Just make
Okay, so we're getting started a couple minutes late, which I don't like, but welcome everyone to the Metro Enhancement Grant meeting. I will call the roll order. Michelle, you want to call the roll, please?
Yes. So, call to order. Renata?
Here.
Rocky?
Here.
Ray?
Here.
Brian?
Here.
Carlotta?
Here.
Leslie?
Here.
And Mayor Holliday.
Here. Good.
We do have one committee member who is not available to attend. She is out of town.
Do we not have the documents uploaded?
They're supposed to be uploaded. I don't see them.
I don't see them.
You're on
That's why I
presentation.
brought this.
I didn't bring my computer.
There's the.
I have all the grants right
Oh, let me
here.
see. Let me see if the agenda does it. Oh, okay, they're here now. All right.
Is it on there?
Yeah.
Okay.
Whoops. Except what did I
Okay, so first I need to have a motion for the approval of the minutes from June 11th, 2015.
do? So moved.
Second.
Moved by Commissioner Mengerberg, seconded by Councilor Collette. Call the roll, please.
Sorry. Ran in fast.
I move faster than Mayor Neely did. Just letting you know.
He's out there. He didn't hear you though.
Okay, so we're on, excuse me, the approval of the minutes.
Done.
That's done. Okay.
No,
And-
we need. Yeah, did we call the roll on that? No, we didn't call the roll on that. We have a motion in a second, so we need to
Do
call
you
the
need a
roll.
roll?
Yes.
Okay. Carlotta,
Yes.
Renata,
Yes.
Rocky,
Aye.
Brian,
Aye.
Leslie,
Yes.
Ray,
Here.
and Mayor Holliday.
Aye.
Sorry I'm using first names.
That's okay.
Okay.
If you would like me to change, I will.
I think we can be a little
we can handle
informal
it.
in this environment.
Just clarifying.
So this next item is comments from me, and so I want to say that as I have talked to the folks here, just because we have this money does not necessarily mean we need to spend this money. As you all know, we have the Willamette Falls Legacy Project coming up, and that's going to be, an 8 or 10 year evolving thing. So using some of this money to do some things that we might not be able to do otherwise at the Legacy Project, and if we get a development happening at the Rossman 2 site, is something that this committee needs to take into consideration. Beyond that, does anyone have a conflict in any of these projects? If you so, please declare it now.
I can start.
We'll start away.
All right. There's many grants on here that are connected to either the Oregon City School District or Oregon City High School. The first Alliance Charter Academy grant is on school property. I work for the school district.
Let me hold on a second before we get too much farther down this road.
Yes.
So a conflict is
I know.
only a
Still
conflict
gonna
if
say
it
it.
has. I know you are, but I'm going to say this anyway. That is, a conflict is only a conflict if it has a chance to financially impact you, one of us, positively.
Right.
So go ahead, Mr.
So anyway, for the 10 or so grants on here that are connected to the school district, I work for the school district and I work for Oregon City High School. I have a partner on the Main Street board. I am on the board of the Clackamas Heritage Partners, which is on here for a couple grants as well. I'm a non-voting member of the board for Clackamas Heritage Partners. I think that's everything.
Anybody else? Okay, I will declare a potential conflict in that I'm a huge supporter of JRTC and the marching band at the high school, and serve as a volunteer there. So just to have that be out in the open.
I have one more. I live across the street from Ladderette Park. Okay, there we go.
Are we finally done now,
I think
Mr.
we're
Smith?
done.
Okay. So funding information, Mr. Parno.
Thank you, Mayor Holliday. I just have a few very brief comments. First, I want to say that it's really exciting to see all of this interest and excitement about this grant program, and I want to give special credit. If you hadn't already, I just want to recognize Councilor Collette from Metro and our former Mayor Neely, who's in the audience back there, worked with Metro staff and the city staff within this last year to increase the transfer station fee from 50 cents to $1 to allow additional grant funds to become available. So I'd like to just give them a quick hand for that. Thank you very much. And so I was just really excited when Michelle told me that all of these, we have 18 applicants for funds, and that's super exciting because that means amazing things are going to happen in our community. So thank you all for being here, and I apologize that we don't have enough seating. We're just, average sized city with a reasonable sized city hall. So we'll do our, maybe we'll rotate halfway through. I don't know.
Do we have the monitor on out in the lobby?
I will check as soon as I'm finished. I'll go
Okay,
check and make
thank
sure,
you.
because then we can maybe have some folks watch from out there.
Right.
Regarding the funding, so we had advertised $210,000. This is for the committee to recognize. We have $285,000 in requests. So the committee ratings will be important this year. And if you have any questions on that, we can talk about that as we go. And finally, I did want to make also an announcement that Michelle Benville, who has been the administrator of this grant program for the past 16 years, and maybe 18 because we think she volunteered for 2 years before we started to pay her, is now moving on to other things. She's retiring. And so we're going to have a party, a retirement party for Michelle tomorrow. We put out an announcement, but it's tomorrow here at City Hall in this very room from 3 o'clock to 4 o'clock. At the request of Michelle, she said keep it short and sweet. She's very humble, but I have to say that we've been getting a deal as a city with having her administer these grant programs for so many years. She's done an amazing job, and for very inexpensive. And so we're going to have to be working on some other alternatives for administering the program. But I just wanted to take a moment and recognize Michelle. If you could all give her a hand as well. And again, if you're interested, then it's 3 o'clock tomorrow here at the City Hall in this room, and we'll have brief pastries. I think you didn't want to go all out, but thank you, Michelle. And that's my report.
I'll be here.
So, who's doing the rest of this particular piece, Mr. Parno?
And so Michelle will be speaking to the additional items beyond funding.
Ms. Benville?
So the request for an extension.
So we have the grant request.
So the grant
Grant
request is
funding
your,
history,
is
blah, blah.
just your list of what was in your packet of all the
Right.
grant requests. The grant funding is, the summary shows where the fund stands at this point, and the enhancement grant history is a history for the past 10, 12 years of what we've had funding for.
Okay.
Different projects by project or by applicant name.
Okay.
Any questions on any of those?
No.
Eric, forgive my interruption, but Eric did check the monitors on out there, so folks should be able to, if you want to be able to watch out there, if it gets too cozy, you can do that. Or
Is the volume up as well? Okay. All right, so moving on to item 5. 5A is 16379, request for extension. This is for the Main Street, Oregon City request. Are we going to do a presentation on that? Everybody got the documents, right?
Mm-hmm.
Do we-
There is also an additional document in front of you, which I emailed out to you as well, which was
Yeah, I saw this a couple days ago.
so in case you hadn't seen it prior.
Yeah.
If there's any questions of either of the applicants, we could do that. Otherwise,
Well, we need to do these one at a time. So how about the Main Street, Oregon City request? Anybody have any issues with that extension? Then I would
No.
entertain a motion.
Move approval of the extension.
Second?
It's been moved by Councilor Collette, seconded by Commissioner Smith. Discussion, seeing none, call the roll.
Leslie,
Yes.
Ryan,
Yes.
Rocky,
Aye.
Renata,
Yes.
Ray,
Yes.
Carlotta,
Yes.
You
and
can
Mayor
just
Hall.
go Dan,
Dan.
since, yeah, okay.
Yes. Okay.
Motion carries. Moving on, the Oregon City Falls Legacy Project extension. Has everybody seen this, is aware of it? Issues? Motion?
Move to approve the extension for Oregon City Willamette Falls Legacy Project.
Second.
Moved by Commissioner Smith, seconded by Councilor Collette. Call the roll, please.
Renata,
Yes.
Brian,
Yes.
Leslie,
Yes.
Ray,
Yes.
Rocky,
Yes.
Dan,
Yes.
Carlotta.
Yes.
Motion carries unanimously. We'll move on. I'm going to prep all of you folks now. We have a timer up there. We have 18 things to get through. I'm going to be particularly brutal about holding people to their 3 minutes. So I hope you all practiced. So we are at 16380, review and discuss grant proposals, and the first up is Alliance Charter Academy. Come up, state your name and your city of residence for the record, please.
Hi, my name's Nick Chapin. I'm the incoming director at Alliance Charter Academy, and I'm a resident of Oregon City. Our proposal for is that what you want me to start with? Our proposal for our grant is for our community garden project. We moved in from Eastham Elementary School to Park Place Elementary School 5 years ago. We've took over at Park Place. And our goal is to create an outdoor learning center. And we want to start with a community garden, and we want to involve our community around us, and we want to open up plots for community members to come in, for members of our school to have community garden plots. And then also our eventual plan is we want to take half of that and create an actual STEM type outdoor classroom for our science programs, math programs, and arts programs to continue work in STEM, which is an important educational piece, and we really want to get outside and get our hands in the dirt and start moving stuff around. There's one thing to learn about things in the classroom, and there's another thing to be on site in a garden working on different things, especially learning about biological factors in our environment and our community, and also gives us a chance to work with native species of different types of plants and let our kids learn about what's important to the Pacific Northwest as far as plants and growth goes. Our goal was originally we applied and received the HEAL grant through Clackamas County to get us started. So that was kind of our starting funds. We've run into a couple roadblocks. One of the big ones is getting plumbing down to the area that we're in. So most of that grant is getting eaten up with some plumbing and infrastructure. And so we've been working also with the Park Place Neighborhood Association and working to get their approval, Oregon City School District, to get their approval for certain different pieces. There's a lot of steps that go into that. And then to move forward with actual building of the garden. On staff, we have two members of our staff that are certified through the Oregon State Extension Program as master gardeners. And so they're working on some of the design pieces, and our hope is we can get started in the fall with the first pieces of the garden and then use that to continue to build on year after year to hopefully get to the learning center that we want.
Okay.
Right.
Questions?
Nope.
The illustration showed 4x8 raised beds. The text says 5x10. And I'm just wondering, how many raised beds are you talking about? How big are they going to be? 4x8 seems a little bit small, but
4x8 is we were going to do 5x10, but cost it's easier actually to do the 4x8s because it's the lumber.
8 foot lengths.
Yeah. So we scaled down and we scaled down some of the plots because of the expenditure of the plumbing, the initial plumbing to get going. Two of our neighborhood associations were going to sponsor 2 plots, so if we can get more sponsorships, then it opens us up to creating more plots in a bigger area.
Okay, thank you.
Anybody else?
Right.
How long does? Oh, I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
How long does the sponsor last? Could they sponsor for a year and then you can give it up to somebody else to sponsor?
Yeah, that's our goal is for a year, and hopefully that new piece pays for some of the initial materials of that plot, and then as it goes on, they continue to rehabilitate. So anything that we need to do, new dirt, new plants, new
So you can
species.
renew the sponsorships.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
Any other questions? Okay, thanks, sir.
Thank you.
So we'll move back. I gotta go back to the agenda. Next one is the Clackamas County Historical Society.
It's supposed to open it up.
Hello, my name is Claire Blaylock. I'm the Executive Director of the Clackamas County Historical Society, and our project was to enhance the lobby and event space that's currently housed at the Museum of the Oregon Territory. The Museum of the Oregon Territory sits right at the head of Willamette Falls, and we anticipate, especially with all of the construction and with the development that is happening at the falls, we anticipate our museum site being the traffic increasing measurably at the site. And one of the most important things for us, not only as a museum and an organization, but I think also for our community, is to have us put our best foot forward. The carpeting and a lot of the fixtures in our current lobby area are original to the museum, which dates back to the early 1990s, which at this point means that they definitely need to be replaced for, if no other reason than aesthetic purposes. Turquoise for carpeting has sort of gone out of style, sadly. But additionally, it would make our space a lot more versatile and help us be able to pivot towards additional research needs, additional exhibition needs, and also create an event space on the 3rd floor that people are really clamoring for. We've seen a huge uptick in the number of people that have come to the Tumwater Room looking to book that for private events. And that's not only good for us as an organization, but for Oregon City. We have a beautiful view of Willamette Falls, and that view is only going to get better, I'm excited to say. So it's important that the museum reflect all of the possibility and the development that's happening here in Oregon City.
Questions?
Can you explain a little bit more detail of the actual changes that are going to be made? Because you talked about carpet and I think opening up a wall or something like that.
Yes, we have carpeting that needs to be replaced. Additionally, we have built-ins like you would find in your home that have been attached to the walls of the actual area that is right now adjacent to the lobby. What we'd like to do is remove those fixtures from the walls so that we can either move them around the space, remove them from the space to give us additional floor space, to either turn into a more modern visitor area or potentially, other purposes way down the line. So those are the kinds of changes
So
that we're
not
looking at.
opening up walls, just
No, technically it would not be opening up. We'd have to dig into the walls, but I don't think they'd be fully opened up based on the plans that
I
I've
just
seen.
wanted clarification.
Yeah,
I want
no.
to make sure that the walls that we gave money to paint last year
No, they're all
are
staying.
still
They're
painted
beautiful.
and are not going to be.
No,
Okay.
they're
Got
all
it.
painted.
Thank you.
Does that include anything for the elevator too? I know that sometimes an elevator is part of the presentation as well.
This doesn't include anything
Okay.
for the elevator specifically.
Okay.
Okay. Thank you.
Anybody else? Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Next up is Clackamas Heritage Partners.
Yazzelino, Oregon City resident, and Clackamas Heritage Partners at the end of the Oregon Trail. So our project is for the nature trail that'll be on the Oregon Trail experience. So we've been developing the backside of the wagons to represent the whole trail. And we actually have, with the admission that the revenue, have started many things. So we have 2 wagons. We had over 700 children come for the Westward Adventure that we created, just to test out the enthusiasm and the how it would work before we really expand this project. So with that, we have 2 wagons that we put out there, a buffalo banner that I reported before, and we have visitors that are coming through the backside reading the signage. And so we want to open it up and improve it more with the nature trail. And then, of course, there's other aspects to this project, but for this grant proposal, it's for the nature trail. And also then we'll put the indigenous plants along the trail too. So the idea is that different sections walking around the backside would represent all of the states along the trail. So eventually we'll have signage and partnerships with other sites, and then the immigrants. So we have lots of potential for sharing our story and also bringing in more visitors.
Questions?
Is there lighting? Are you going to have some? There seems it might be a little security issue when it's kind of back there. And
So far, we haven't had any problems with what is there. That would be later on when we have more out there too, I think.
I noticed it said that that would be ADA accessible. How does
Yes.
that?
Yes,
How does
it
that
is.
happen on a trail like that?
It is.
But it's mulch, right?
Right.
I think that, well, yeah, I
don't
think it's
think-
ADA because, well, Mike Roberts was looking at this
Mike
program.
Roberts is our building official.
And so I think they can take a wheelchair on it. It's going to be packed down.
Okay.
You know, the trail will be firm.
Anybody else? I have a couple.
Okay.
So when we go to page 4 of your grant request, that is the section 7A that talks about meeting the goals of the Metro Enhancement. And
Yes.
I'm curious as to a couple of your positive check marks.
Oh.
How does the trail improve safety within the city?
How does it improve safety?
Yes.
Well, I think because if they're walking back there, the trail is safer for the people using the trail. So, and we're using it,
Without
people
the
are
trail
using
right
it.
now.
And also, it makes it for the people that we want to use it, because there are people camping out there, and I don't know. It's the
There's
transients.
people camping at.
Yes, we have transients that
Well, yeah,
come through.
but what?
And
And are you calling the police and taking care of that when that
oh,
happens?
of course, of
Okay.
course, and they're there. I'm just saying though, but by the public using it more and opening it up and making it more, I think it's become safer.
Okay.
Actually,
So how does this project increase recycling efforts to provide a reduction in solid waste?
in solid waste, well, I'm not real sure about that.
Okay. The point I'm making is you can't just go through and check all the boxes, that people are actually going to look at this stuff. So,
Well, yes.
okay. that's-
Actually, to tell you the truth, Jerry Herman is doing some of this work. I do not know a lot about, you know, land waste and all of these things. My part in this is Jerry will be performing the work. I'm hiring him to do some things. He's made some of the wagons and that. What I'm doing is having a nature trail that I think enhances our park. And it also is used by the community anyway, so this trail will make it safer.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
thanks, Skip.
One comment, and that is that a number of these grants might also be eligible for Nature and Neighborhoods grants from Metro.
Okay.
So that doesn't mean that this application shouldn't be considered, but we have a new grants program that is a Trails grants program.
Okay.
We are about to spend down all of that money, so I wouldn't discourage you from having submitted this application as well, because I think this is a case where this might work just fine.
Okay.
But for anybody else out there, if your projects don't get passed tonight or approved tonight, there are the Nature and Neighborhood grants that are available. They're on a cycle just like this, so.
Well, I'm
And if
gonna-
we are also running out of money, and we're about to go back to the voters to ask for your support to extend it, so little pitch.
Yes. Well, thank you.
Next up is depave.
I have a few updated drawings, if that's appropriate.
Sure.
There's slides.
Sets.
Oh, they're sets.
Hello, I'm Eric Rosewall. I'm with the nonprofit dpave. I'm a resident of Portland. And this project is a partnership with the Clackamas Academy of Industrial Sciences, and we aim to reactivate the main courtyard space at the school, depave some concrete areas, and add a rain garden infiltration demonstration area, as well as a pollinator garden and sculptural elements So we'll be working with the students and engaging them in the hands-on activities of demolishing space and rebuilding it in their image.
Okay. Questions?
Were you involved with one at Eastham also?
Yes, I was. That was our DPAV's first project in Oregon City. It went really well.
Yeah, it did. It was very good.
Thank you.
I had a question about, is it available for visitors to go and check out, or is it just going to be strictly for the workshops and the students? It wasn't clear to me for some reason.
On off hours, I'm not positive that courtyard is.
The courtyard is locked.
I think it's
okay.
locked.
So it's strictly a student
You can
thing.
see it through the fence, so.
Okay, cool. That'd be great.
Primarily, but
I'll throw
our
my
work,
dog over.
Yeah, our work really serves to engage the entire neighborhood and community. So
Okay.
we would try and bring them in for all the work parties as well as
Okay.
the students.
Okay. Further questions? Okay, then we'll move on. Thank you, sir.
Thank you for your time.
Next is Girl Scout Troop 45064. What are you giggling about over there,
Everybody's
Sean?
backing out.
Do you have cookies? Just saying.
Everyone loves the Girl Scouts.
Yes. All right.
Mint.
They're a little shy, but they've been very much involved in this project for quite some time. The project that the Girl Scout troop is proposing is to work with a group called City Repair to really create or undertake a more expansive public engagement process about La Tourette Park.
I'm sorry, I'm not sure I caught your name.
Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't say. My name's Karen Burig, and I am a troop leader for Girl Scout 45060, 45064, the troop.
Okay,
They're a
sorry.
cadet troop here in Oregon City.
Sorry to interrupt, but we
That's
have to
right.
have you
I
name for the
just,
record,
I
so.
got confused. So the troop hosted a party in La Tourette Park. This project is about La Tourette Park and engaging, creating change in that park. Currently, it's a park that hasn't had much investment in, and the girls would like to see it become a gathering place for the neighborhood again. At one point in time, there was actually a city, the city pool was there. Currently, there is a tennis court as well as a basketball court, but there really hasn't been much investment over the past 40 years. At the party in the park, they really learned that people are interested. They had about 70 people participate on a very rainy, windy day. And they learned about themes. They learned that there is interest in active play. There's interest in a nature play, and climbing is something kids really want to do. But we came out of that knowing that we really need full community or neighborhood engagement and come up with an implementation plan for what are the pieces of that park. Obviously, as you said earlier, the city's got a lot of stuff going on, and so we can work with a group called City Repair that has worked with other communities to engage the neighboring community to get to an implementation plan. So that's really the heart of what this application is about. There would be a 3-day workshop that happens in the fall that the neighborhood would attend, really talk about ideas, and with the end product really being, you know, the pieces that would make that park work.
I have a question. So about a year and a half, and hi, by the way.
Hi.
About a year and a half ago, there was a resurgence in the painting and stuff. And was that something you were involved in too as well,
No.
or is that a different person? Okay.
No.
When Michelle or something is it? Her name was?
I don't recall. But
Okay.
yes, there are paintings. That was
Yeah.
recently
Okay.
done
Because
at that park.
there was a big, huge. I didn't know if she was involved in what you were doing, but okay.
I was impressed. I went to the opening party you had there. I mean, it cost me 5 boxes of cookies.
Oh, yeah, it cost you $5 I get that. I'm sure you didn't eat any of those cookies, right?
They're in the freezer.
Before he left, he ate
They're in the
them.
freezer. Don't worry about it. Anyway, what's a little bit more about City Repair?
City
What's
Repair is
their-
an organization that's based out of Portland. They've been around for about 20 years. What I tell people is you might think of those intersections that have been painted, let's say in Selwood or whatnot. They also do some cob building. So I think we actually have a bench that they were involved in potentially up on Division Street. But they also engage communities. So they worked with a community up in Canada about a year ago with a park specifically, trying to come up with a plan for that. Their specialty is working with community groups. They don't work with governments. They work with community groups that want to see change in their community. So we've been talking with them about the different things that they could offer us. So they have it set up so that they would be able to host a series of open houses and different ways to engage the community.
It's interesting. Is there any cost to that at all?
Well, that's what this particular grant would pay for.
Okay,
yes.
gotcha.
Anybody else? So just out of full disclosure, Commissioner Smith lives right above the park.
We said that already.
Okay, thank you.
All right.
Not like right above it,
Well, okay, there's a street that separates you from the park. Gee.
in a tree.
Is there a tree there? I don't think so. All right, next up is the Greater Oregon City Watershed Council.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor and members of the committee. My name is Rita Baker. I'm the coordinator for the Greater Oregon City Watershed Council. I reside in Clackamas County.
And I'm Doug Neely, chair of the board of the Greater Oregon City Watershed Council. Reside in Oregon City.
I'm hearing something strange. Anyway, our project is the Mountain View Cemetery Scattering Canyon Water Quality Project. The Watershed Council became aware of the project through our work with Metro and the city in regards to some invasive removals and native plantings we did in Newell Canyon. There's many inputs into Newell Creek, and this is one of them that we felt we could address an issue of stormwater management. The dry details of this is we are working with Public Works to get some design and specifications for the project. In fact, we contributed $12,000 from our Nature Conservancy grant to get the plans and specifications to 30% complete. What we're working with the Public Works folks to do with grant funds is to accelerate the process for these funding mechanisms so that when they have the project in the budget in the 2017 biennium, they'll be able to go out to bid and begin. So that's the dry detail, but the Scattering Canyon is a very spiritual place. It's where people come to disperse the remains of their loved ones. Right now it's very eroded. I fear the mausoleums may fall down on the trail. And we have a series of terraced ponds that will collect the stormwater, but it's also going to be decorated with boulders and native plantings and things that we think will make it more aesthetically pleasing. I do have a larger drawing of the conceptual plans. I'm happy to give you, if that would be helpful. I know you have an 8.5 by 11 drawing in your materials. Happy to answer any questions.
Questions?
So,
Go ahead.
Go ahead.
So assuming that this grant is funded, is there an implementation commitment by Public Works that they would build it?
Yes.
They stated they were planning to include it in their budget for the next biennium.
Councilor Collette?
Well, my question was about the. It sounded like you wanted this grant to sort of accelerate the design process rather than wait until next year. Doesn't the city not have the budget to do the design process?
It's not in their budget this year, and the thing is that it would probably be a 2-year project without the design. So the implementation would be done in that 2-year period.
Okay.
So, just talking to the commissioners here for a second, I don't recall hearing about that coming through a process anywhere to someone else.
That would be part of the next goals. I mean, the budget for the next cycle would
the
be the
next
next
biennium.
commission.
This is based on discussions with Public Works itself.
Yeah.
Okay,
But Public
but
Works
not
will
with
put it in their budget.
yeah. Okay, so not with policymakers, just with staff.
Right.
Yeah, we wouldn't be doing that for a grant proposal. We are not supposed to lobby you guys.
Okay, any further questions?
I had a question. So you said that, so I know that you got 12,251 from PGE, and that's 30% completed, is that correct?
Yes.
So when you got that money, was the 30% just how far you could go, or was it that you needed more money than you expected? Do you know what I'm
The
saying?
answer, I think, is that we had money to do the wetland delineation, basically, not the full engineering, and that was money that went into it. We actually had an engineer working with us for gratis, so there's more than $12,000 involved in this. We had actually an engineer doing some work with gratis on the wetland delineation.
Okay, so that got you to that 30%.
And
Because
the
that was
cultural
as
report.
much as you could go,
Yeah.
not because it wasn't.
Yeah, and the cultural
that
report,
it made
too.
more.
Yeah.
Okay.
Anybody else?
When the project is completed, assuming it's funded, would it be accessible to the public?
Absolutely. I mean, that's the piece of it. And I wasn't able to capture in photographs, but it's, right now there's bollards that bar, vehicles that you don't want down there. But we would like to see it more aesthetic. But yes, the public definitely would be using it.
Yeah, there's actually a public path that goes down into the flatlands where these ponds are that will be used for stormwater. So the public occasionally goes down there, and there are actually some memorial stones, beautifully carved stones that are down there, which would have been approved by the cemetery for some of the remains that are scattered. It's worth it, even though it's not a very pleasing area, it's worth walking down there and seeing these beautiful stones, memorial stones that were carved out of probably basalt or granite.
So is this a city park?
It's beautiful.
It is, yeah, the cemetery is a city park, yes.
Yeah.
And it abuts metro land below it, south and east.
Okay.
Anybody else? Okay,
Great.
thank you.
Thank you.
Shaw, you want to take this one? So the Hillendale Pickleball Club.
I don't like pickles. Is that a conflict of interest?
No, it's,
Do you
you
like
don't know about pickleball?
Pretty sure you wouldn't like that pickle, but
Good afternoon, I'm Robert Small.
Hello, I'm Tom Whidden. I'm the Northwest District Ambassador for the USA Pickleball Association.
Yes.
And I reside in Oregon City, and I am the group leader of the Hillendale Pickleball Club.
I'm a Clackamas County resident for the last 37 years.
okay.
We are seeking funds to expand the courts, the current courts, from 5 pickleball courts to 8 without eliminating any existing sports on that court. Tennis will still be able to be played there, as well as basketball. The 2 basketball hoops will be on the side of the court, so it would be 2 half courts in effect. We've been there for almost 2 years now, and nobody has played tennis. There's not been a conflict with any tennis players and pickleball players. And as far as basketball, a mom and a dad and a son will come out occasionally and play basketball, and that's a rare thing. So expanding pickleball to 8 courts would bring more players to the community. On Monday we had 24 people play pickleball. All 5 courts were being used. We didn't play today because they're spraying the park with some pesticide or something. So, and this would allow us to bring tournaments to the area, bring people from Eastern Oregon, north, south, east, and west. Pickleball players love this sport. They travel to play in tournaments, and it would be a benefit to Oregon City to expand to 8 courts.
Questions?
What is the parking situation there? Could it
Yeah, that's
accommodate
it.
these?
Parking?
Right. Would there be enough parking if
We
you're...
currently use the 2 parking lots at the court, one on Claremont and the other one at the east end of the park. And then a lot of us use parking lot F by the sheriff's maintenance facility there.
Okay.
I talked to Sheriff Rollins.
Roberts?
No, it's Rollins.
Rollins?
Yeah.
Rollins?
Rollins is deputy.
Okay.
Oh, it's deputy,
Yeah,
okay.
Okay, I talked to him, and he said we could use that parking lot, and there's plenty of space there for parking.
Can you turn your mic a little bit closer to you, please? Thank you.
So going on, because that was my question too, is going on that. So when you talk to Rollins, in the future, if you would get this grant, would there be something more substantial in like a contract or a understanding between you and the sheriff's department of being able to utilize that as it grows?
I would certainly approach him on that.
Okay, because and then there's the parking lot that is on the other side of the old animal shelter, is also
Correct.
used for. So that's a really, if that was something that could be used.
And the tournaments are usually Friday, Saturday, Sunday.
Okay.
And I believe we could probably use that one. Well, they have the Saturday market there. Just forget that idea.
Yeah.
Can't park on top of that.
But yeah, if there was some kind of what do they call it, MOU or something?
Yeah.
We have approximately 2,800 pickleball players in the greater Portland area, and we have 9 outdoor venues to play on the west side of the Willamette River, but Hillendale Park is our only East Portland venue.
Oh, let's be careful about calling this East Portland, okay?
East of the Willamette River.
There you
So we deserve to have a place, but this particular facility, when completed, would actually be the best and the newest of all our facilities in the area. Primarily pickleball is played by senior citizens, empty nesters, and so it's the one demonstrated senior active sport that everybody can become involved in. We've had tremendous turnout in here. The court surface is right at the edge where it needs to be salvaged or experience some very serious repairs, but if we catch it this season, turn it around and minimize the cost of fixing up the court. Makes sense, pay me now or pay me later, but it's a lot cheaper now.
Okay,
And just
Ray?
continuing on to that, sorry. So, and I'm trying to find it, but I didn't see a note of, have you been working with the Hellendale Neighborhood Association?
Yes, we
Oh,
have.
good. Okay. Yeah, because that parking situation.
Included in the packet are 2 letters of support from
yeah.
Scott Archer as well as Hillendale. They're very enthusiastic about the fresh new sets of eyes that, well, we're all facing a little bit of a problem with the transient deal, and if you bring a lot of folks into the area, it tends to mitigate that problem.
And Hillendale's having a Meet Your Neighbor Tuesday the 5th,
Okay.
6 to 8 p.m., and they invited us to open up the courts, which we are going to. So come out and play Tuesday evening.
Okay,
I figured.
anybody else? I have one question,
Yes, yes.
because I'm kind of sticky about this little 7A box
I
here.
knew you were going to do that.
I know. So how does the pickleball court increase recycling efforts to provide a reduction in solid waste?
Well, as a rule, the attendees take their trash, the empty bottles with them. They don't put it in the trash can out there. And we clean up the court from other users, kids that drop their cigarette butts or pop cans. And we pick up the trash when you go to and from our vehicles. Clean up the park, make it cleaner.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
All right, thank you very much.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you for your consideration.
Thank you.
So next we have the Home Orchard Society.
My name is Tanya Lordy. I am the manager of the Home Orchard Society. The organization has been around for the last 40 years. We've been on the campus of Clackamas Community College for the last 30. We are a public orchard within city limits. I've noticed in my time there that we don't seem to have enough community members involved. Nobody really knows that there's an orchard that we grow probably about 15 different species of fruit. So I would really like to get the community more involved. And so our community orchard initiative was designed to make some significant improvements to our site, which would include a shed extension, trellising system for some raspberries and caneberries to be added into our collection. We have a kiwi arbor that's existing but not in very good shape after 30 years of Pacific Northwest winters. And we're also installing some additional blueberries. And then we have some very large mulberry trees that haven't really seen pruning shears in a long time, so they need some professional crane-lifted pruners to get up there. And stocking our tool shed is something that we find a need for to give our volunteers the ability to work with hand tools. We always seem to be running out of tools for our volunteers. Currently, we have a pretty decent volunteer base. I get about 75 hours of volunteer labor a month. I work with the Community Connections, which is involved with the Clackamas County Juvenile Corrections. We also work with Clackamas County, Oregon City High School has used us as a learning laboratory. PCC students have used us as a learning laboratory. I work with the horticulture department at Clackamas Community College. They come over and learn and work with us. We also serve as a host site for Lewis and Clark students that are just coming over into the Pacific Northwest. It's their first taste. They get to come and visit us for their new student orientation and do some service work at the Arboretum.
Questions?
So when you say it's a community orchard, is the fruit made available primarily to the food pantry I saw in your application, or can community members come out and pick apples?
Well, we don't allow people necessarily to pick unless they're an active volunteer, because just insurance reasons. So currently we run a CSA, Community Supported Agriculture Program, with all of the fruit, and so anybody is open to purchase a share of our harvest every year. With our extra, we donate that to food pantries, and we give our extra to volunteers, but we've got so much extra and not enough volunteers. So the idea is to get away from the community-supported agriculture model and move towards a total community access, grow it, help me grow it, take it home sort of model.
How big is this orchard?
1.6 acres.
Okay. And same question that I had for DePave. Is it visitor friendly, or is it just
Yes.
for the students, or visitors can come and check it out?
Yes, we're open to the public. We've been open
perfect.
to the public for the last 30 years on Tuesdays and Saturdays from 9 until 3 p.m. It's a beautiful spot.
Okay, good.
Yes.
So, but it is fenced and secured otherwise?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Anybody else?
Okay. Thank you, Don.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. So next up is Main Street, Oregon City, the Brew Festival.
Actually, it's sort of like a two-part summer event application. One of it is to help with some startup and expenses related to the Oregon Trail Brew Fest, and then the second part is to help with which builds into the First City celebration, but it's sort of a year-round event need that we've identified, and that is improved sound equipment for community and tourism-related events in downtown Oregon City. So, Mayor, I think you can remember at the tree lighting how there were about 1,000 people there, and I'm pretty sure only 500 people heard you speak. And so I would like everyone to be able to hear you speak. So
I never have a problem hearing me.
Yeah, interesting.
But nevertheless, the Downtown Association has introduced the Oregon Trail Brew Fest this year as a sort of a key summertime event to celebrate Oregon City industry related around the growing brewing industry in Oregon City, but also as a potential tourism opportunity. And so we're happy to report we have 20 participating breweries from as far away as Kansas City to as close as Oregon City. And that'll be a hopefully very successful event. When I wrote this application, I anticipated certain costs. I can assure you that the costs have ballooned even more than when I wrote this application, including about $1,000 additional in refrigeration costs that we hadn't anticipated. So the money is definitely a need at this point to make sure that the event is able to be sustained, and hopefully we want to build it into a year-round, sorry, not a year-round, we need to work sometimes. Every year event that Oregon City can be proud of. And then the sound system itself, we've been wanting for a long time to enhance our events with better sound equipment. We basically borrow, not steal, but whatever we can do to get sound systems into Liberty Plaza. And most of the time, unless we're paying a handsome sum, they're inadequate. And things like Fourth Fridays, and sort of impromptu events, we'd love to be able to offer the community an opportunity to activate that space without having to come across as amateur or without having to spend any significant amount of money. So we've compared rental costs to acquisition costs, and even with a 25% annual replacement rate on the sound system, we're well below rental rates. And we had the high school host an event in downtown just a few weeks ago, and unfortunately they were not prepared, and had we been able to help them, they would have not suffered this consequence, but their graduating vocalists didn't have mics that worked. And so they had this fundraiser they were putting on where nobody got to hear that part of the performance. And so we like when people provide free entertainment downtown, and one of the ways to help them do that is to provide the equipment to help that makes it easier for them to do so. But then, it helps with just about everything we do in terms of event production. So it's kind of like a summer event mashup, Brewfest and sound system, but for the first time this year we'll be introducing a second stage at First City, so we'll have a kids stage. We hope to use this sound system on that kids stage as well, where I think the Youth Music Project will be performing, Harmony Road Music Center, and others.
So is this a permanent system there, or this is still a portable system?
It's still a portable system. I think one of the subwoofers might have to become one of our conference tables, but yes, it'll be portable, but in nearby radius of Liberty Plaza. So if somebody wants to ask us to reserve it, we would make it available for them.
Okay. Any questions?
So would you need to still hire a team to set up the sound system and operate it?
We're envisioning that there's kind of like the full system, and then there's the idiot-proof percentage of the system that would be set up in a way that an amateur could use it. But the plan is also to maybe work with the high school to train students and pay them a nominal fee if we do have an event to come down and operate the system on like Fourth Fridays or something like that. And even still, it's way less expensive than renting a sound system, and it's kind of nice to be able to give that as an opportunity to students.
So right now you just borrow equipment and then volunteers set it up, or do you hire? When I've done public concerts, I've always hired sound system and people who bring the stuff in and set it up.
And so, yeah, there's two parts. There's the equipment itself, and then there's the management of it. When we've had bands come and perform for like Fourth Fridays or other events, they typically have I'll come with my sound system price and I'll come without my sound system price, and so we pay them the higher price, and then they manage the sound system themselves. In those situations, we could expect the bands would understand how to use the equipment, and our volunteers would be able to cart it out for them. In the case of events where you might have more complicated sound needs, that's where I would expect that we would work with either educated volunteers that have been trained on it, or with trained students or something like that.
Right.
Hey, what's up? I like you answered some of the questions I had, like that it would be shareable. I think, have you considered having a small fee for people to pay so you recoup some cost, or be able to fill the kitty a little bit more, so to speak?
We haven't. So Yeah, for people that are maybe outside the organization, we might have a deposit of some kind, and so if there's
Yeah.
any damage that comes back, then we can recoup those costs, because we don't want to be in the business of losing this public investment. It's over time, a microphone
Yeah.
gets dropped, speaker gets left out in the rain, those kinds of things can add up. So.
And then the other thing, just from a marketing standpoint, so the First City Celebration and Oregon Trail Brew Fest, to me it looks like two separate happenings. So how are you gonna? I mean, I know that it just sounds like two different events, which I understand what you're going for. I'm just curious about how you're gonna do that. I mean, to have it be under one.
So think of it as like an amped up beer garden, and and so to the community attendee of First City Celebration that's been coming for the last 7 years, they're going to be like, wow,
yeah,
they really dialed this up. To the tourist or the market that might be sort of more of a beer aficionado, they're gonna show up because they saw the Oregon Trail Brewfest poster in their favorite tap room, and they're gonna show up and they're gonna be like, whoa, there's a whole other festival going on here. And the point is that we wanted to brand the event separately to give it a potential for separation in the future if we saw that as but also to incubate it at the same time, to introduce it to a whole bunch of people that were planning on coming down otherwise.
I know that personally, got people in helping to promote events. People got confused by the Sandy Music Fair and Feast, or is it the Sandy Mountain Festival, and it kind of pulled the audience apart because it was a little confusing. So I just was just curious about that. But okay.
I have a question about how you would plan to have the Brewfest be sustainable over the long term.
Invite all your friends to come help us empty the kegs. That's the best way to make it sustainable in the long term. So this year with our summer events, because we've been wanting to make them more self-sustaining, one of the methods is to look towards owning alcohol and beverage sales, and so that was a key decision for putting on the Brewfest. So that is a volunteer-led festival that the proceeds of those sales go to sustain the festival if it looks like it has a future, which we hope it does, but also to then provide return on investment for the Downtown Association to reinvest in its marketing and economic development programs. In terms of the sustainability of the Beer Fest, I would just point to the proliferation of beer fests throughout Oregon. We've seen peer Main Street organizations be very successful at this format, and so by introducing it at the First City Celebration, we're trying to minimize our risk, but also maximize our opportunity to be able to either continue to keep them together or pull them apart as the market seems to want. And we'll be evaluating that based upon surveys and whatnot at the event day.
Anybody else? All right, thank you, Jonathan. You can get up and then you can sit down again. Main Street Oregon City Clean Team.
Thank you so much for funding this program, the pilot program of this last year, and it's been what I hope you guys might perceive as a success. We've had a lot of positive comments about this program, but the Clean Team is essentially it's a team in a sense that it's one person working 20 hours a week, but it's a collaborative effort. We bring in volunteer hours on a quarterly basis to do deep cleanings or sort of special projects. So like this past year, we as one of those volunteer quarterly cleanups, we cleaned up the Railroad Avenue wall that was growing with moss and everything, and so we had a bunch of people out there debrushing the hillside and scraping off the moss and power washing the wall and really giving that an uplift. And then on another project, we did some work along 14th Street in terms of reducing a lot of the weed growth and sort of what appears to be years of caked on leaves and stuff like that. And Jerry actually helped us with that project, which was really successful. And another one, we basically brought as many power washers downtown as we could, and we're cleaning off what could have been years of gum and whatnot downtown. But so the point of the Clean Team is to provide a consistent presence, and which helps us keep eyes and ears on the entire district. So from a safety perspective, that staff reports to us, any transient issues, but also any maintenance issues we can report to the city maybe faster than the city might see them themselves. But then also to provide consistent and sort of higher level of cleaning service. We all hope that our private property owners maintain their property to the level that we want them to, or their neighbors want them to, but that doesn't necessarily happen in that way. And as we strive to become a more retail, pedestrian-friendly district, sometimes we got to take it in our own hands and make sure that everything is fair and level in terms of the cleanliness of the district. And so with the grant last year, we were able to acquire a number of key equipment pieces. We bought a sidewalk vacuum. You may have seen it being used downtown, but that thing will suck up just about anything, and including cigarette butts to like large. I'm just amazed what goes through that, and
cats.
But I have not seen a cat go through it.
Feral cat. I had to borrow it from a shepherd. Yeah.
But tools like that have helped the Clean Team be efficient in terms of being able to do what they're able to accomplish in a 20-hour basis. So basically, they have a rotation where they focus more intensely on the mostly pedestrian district from 5th to 10th, but then they also rotate out all the way down to 16th and out to 99E, just kind of picking up trash as they find it, maintenance issues as they see them. And as we continue to evolve that program, we're hoping that it is an ongoing staple. From a need perspective, the organization is still in a capacity building phase. We would like to continue this program, but as we're continuing to build capacity around some of our other economic development programs, we're finding ourselves in a position to at least ask for another year of funding of this program so that we can continue it while we're also continuing our other work.
Questions?
So the goal would eventually be that this would be a self-funding or sustainable program.
That is the goal, yes. And so from a capacity building perspective, we're just we're running far ahead of ourselves in terms of developing program, and we're just we're hoping that this next year will identify more sustaining resources for the programs. We know that reliance on the Metro Enhancement Grant Program for this specific program is not a forever thing, and we don't want it to be a forever thing.
Mr. Smith?
Is the street team is that year round? Mm-hmm. And then you just talked about the rotations, but is it on a weekly basis or daily basis? Or?
It depends on this. We have one employee that's been doing it for most of the time, and so he has kind of a style of his own, and so I check in with him on a weekly basis in terms of what his duties are. But yeah, we try to be regular in terms of the rotation. So if it's 3 days on this route, it's 2 days on those routes or something like that, unless they're pulled away for special projects like we were trying to rotate through downtown doing power washing on a weekly schedule as well.
Okay.
You've also got tree lighting maintenance on here too.
And thank you so much for 2 years ago for funding the initial investment in the tree lighting program downtown, which I hope you agree has been wildly successful, and especially with the proliferation of restaurants downtown. I know that they see that as a huge asset to being a business downtown. We're discovering that as much as we love those giant movie crew trucks, they have a way of ripping through trees, and when they rip through trees, sometimes they rip through the lights that are installed in them. And we actually have like a 20-foot extendable pole with a hook on the end that and this year we were much better at it because we had that pole and the weekly team in place, where we've reduced the number of trees that have been damaged this year. But nevertheless, we're going to have to replace those lights on a rotation, but also the ones that get damaged are going to need a professional crew to come in with a bucket truck to change out. And so basically what we've done is we noticed it because a lot of the maintenance work has been done by our Clean Team staff, that we've basically merged the two programs into one.
So
Go ahead.
The film crews don't pay for the trees they damage or the...
Well, I think A truck is a truck is a truck. I was
So it's
I was
not
going to
just
make a
film.
specific
It's not
point that you can't
specific.
just blame the film crews.
I know. I personally witnessed a couple. The film trucks are just happen to be like 6 inches taller than all the other ones. So, no, but and it's a difficult thing having a historic downtown with very limited loading zones to be able to police that. And we want commerce to continue, and we don't want to be If it's a couple $1,000s a year to replace the lights, it's worth it because we have a growing and improving economic district.
Squirrels tend to eat those too, so I'm
Suck up the squirrels with the big vacuum cleaner. Fix the problem.
You're going to get the animal rights people all worked up. Okay, any questions? All right, thanks, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next up, Oregon City High School Band, Flag Team, and JRTC. I just want to recognize, because apparently he's not going to come up, but Major Thomas from JRTC unit is here. Go ahead.
Good evening, Tyler Kendall, Oregon City resident and also Band Booster board member. Tonight we're asking for your help with our Pete's Cruise In. It's an annual event held Labor Day weekend and benefits the band and JROTC program. We're in our 8th year, and this is actually a community-run event that the students also participate in on a volunteer basis. And this year we have a unique situation that the band has been invited to Hawaii to represent Oregon for the 75th anniversary commemorating the attack on Pearl Harbor. So they'll be doing a special wreath laying, playing at the Arizona or the Missouri, and also participating in a parade. So this year what we want to do is outreach further and also bring our veterans into the program, into the cruise in, and tie in our community, our car enthusiasts, the high school, and our veterans together. It's a unique year because we've moved it back to the high school. So this summer, after their band camp, they're going to be going through and cleaning up the school after the closure for the year, and doing some enhancements with the district's approval at the entrance to the school. The kids also work on a volunteer basis on various jobs. They usually work with the car community as well as other volunteers, so it teaches them responsibility. They have a shift, they have a job they need to do. We'll also this year be designing unique trophies, and that's one of the things that helps us draw in a bigger crowd of car enthusiasts. So last year they were all custom made out of car parts, and so they're very popular. So we appreciate your help and support in this important fundraiser.
Questions?
So I'm not sure that I understand the relationship between funding the personnel for the cruise in and financing the band going to Hawaii.
Sure. So to tie that together, so what we're asking for is help in offsetting the cost of putting on the fundraiser, so that the fundraising dollars will all go towards the kids' costs. So that'll help students that otherwise wouldn't go, as well as shipping large instruments and the logistics of getting a band. We have over 150 people traveling to Hawaii.
My name's Lisa Saraceno Bach, and I'm a resident of Oregon City, a parent volunteer. A lot of what we want to do also is work with the school district in beautifying the grounds of the school. Presently, right now, there are large oak trees in front of the school and large boulders. Now, what happens is these kids that are volunteering and going to practices for band or jazz or anything having to do with school functions have no place to sit outside except these boulders. This enhancement grant would enable us to provide seating, benches, beautify the area, have the kids be involved in that particular area. As I said, there's nothing out front. It's very cold and plain. There's nothing welcoming parents or even visitors to our school. We have a lot of other activities going on at that high school. So this would enable us to take money and put that towards and eventually continue this and have former students and students to be involved.
Okay.
Commissioner Smith?
So why is the $5,000 in personnel services?
Yeah.
And not construction or materials
benches.
or anything else?
Okay,
It doesn't make sense.
Okay, the five, when I am the person who filled out the paperwork, when we're filling out all this paperwork, we're filling out amounts according to hours. We have well over 100 volunteers, family members, parents, people who have graduated from Oregon City in the past, as well as people outside of Oregon City that are volunteering their time. So that amount is basically volunteer hours.
Well, that's what your in-kind matching
Yes, I know.
15,000 is.
I know.
So it's where.
Okay. Well, there is cost in trying to promote this event, and that's where we're having a little bit of an issue.
So let me get this clear. This is still about the Pete's Cruising, right?
Correct.
And you're doing that they're doing that at the high school now?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. So this is one of those things where, I'm going to support it this time around, but we've been giving money to the cruise-in for years and years. And one of my mission, and certainly I believe the commission's decision is that we provide seed money to get an event started, but we're not here to fund, projects for 10 or 15 years in a row. So just
Well,
to
I
get
guess
that
that's
point
not
across.
even my case because it's a great event. The school building looks horrible. I agree.
brand new.
Well, the building looks fine. The landscaping doesn't. But I still have a hard time figuring out if that $5,000 was placed in construction costs or in materials, and it was clear that that was going to those things, but it's not. So I have no idea really what we're approving.
It will purchase the benches, the bark, the flowers. This is the first time we're applying for something like this, and I have to be honest with you, this is actually my second year volunteering for Pete's Cruise-In. I am just a parent volunteer, and if I added up my hours, how much time I've spent on this, as well as others, I don't know what more to say.
We're all volunteers too.
Yeah.
It's just hard for me to know what we're approving.
No, I
because it
know,
doesn't-
but the money is, part of that chunk of money would be going to purchasing those benches and beautifying.
Okay, so I just want to caution you on one point.
Sure.
I get the benches, but doing anything more than bark dust in that area is going to be a disaster. Back when I was in high school at the old campus, we talked about this same area that was on the D-pave thing. The senior class before came in and planted some trees, did some grass, and that lasted all of 3 months after school started. So, high school kids have no regard for planting materials. So,
and it's really the school district's responsibility to deal with the building.
Right.
So I guess my challenge is that on page 8, the proposed budget doesn't have anything listed at all, either in kind or in grant request for materials. So it's not clear to me where the materials.
We are in the process of actually asking local businesses for donations. So it's an ongoing thing. We've already sent out letters, and we'll be also sending out more letters to try to.
I think we need to be clear about this time. That you haven't given us any information that talks about any of the things that you're talking about. So what we're really doing is giving them $6,200 to deal with, taking away some of their personnel costs so we can get these kids to Hawaii for the 75th anniversary of Pearl Harbor. So I think that's the clear thing that we're doing this time.
Unfortunately, that's not a very necessarily appropriate use of these dollars, because they are really about cleaning up the environment, cleaning up the parks, or those kinds of things. This lists 0% for personnel, but the whole budget is for personnel. And I understand you're saying that you're going to use it for other things, but that's not what's written here. So it's hard for us to judge your proposal based on what you're saying versus what you've written down. On question 17, what percentage of the enhancement grant funds will be used for personnel? And you say 0, but down below it says personnel is basically all of the grant is going for personnel.
Okay. I more than likely put everything in the wrong place, and I will be admitting that unfortunately, as I said, I'm just a simple housewife.
Oh, we get it. We get it.
And no one wants to step up. So hence, I'm here, and I'm here for the kids.
All right.
So I'll do whatever it takes to help them.
Okay.
Further questions?
Thanks so much.
All right, thank you. Okay, next up, the Oregon City Library Foundation.
Good evening. I'm Karen Martini. I'm the chair of the Oregon City Library Foundation, and we are partnering with the city in helping to get our new library built. This proposal is for one very small but important piece of the new construction and the renovation of the Carnegie as part of our new library. So just to give you the context of this, because we've got layers and layers and layers of activity here. So the foundation is in a fundraising campaign to raise $500,000 to support the new library. There are 3 pieces to that campaign. One of those pieces is to bridge a funding gap between what the city had available for the library and sort of the pared down costs of actually doing that construction. There was about a $250,000 gap. The foundation committed to bridge that. Another piece, the second piece, is to enhance the library and add elements back in, or elements not yet even thought of, that didn't make that budget. So our goal is to raise another $100,000 to do that. And then the third piece of it is to create a fund that will help support this new facility and some special projects in the library in the future. So that's the $500,000. So the stairs is about a $17,000 budget item. The stairs have been redone 2 or 3 times now, never adequately or very well. I mean, well enough. But Mo actually went out and measured them the other day, and they are different heights and different widths. It's a really amazing thing. So they're not safe, and they're pretty ugly, and we'd really like to have those restored to what they were originally when the Carnegie was built. So that's the goal. So the $17,000 is part of a $100,000 package to enhance that facility. The other pieces of that package, one we've already committed to, is the reading circle, which is outside kind of on the 7th Avenue side, which is a great piece. And then there's other things coming down the line, probably more artwork, systems for hanging and installing artwork. We aren't sure yet of all the technology needs that are going to occur in that place. We think that probably some of those costs are going to escalate as we go along. So the Library Foundation is trying to be prepared to make sure that we're in the wings and ready to provide all the support that we need to really make that library what we deserve in this community.
Okay. Questions? Nothing?
Nothing?
Okay.
So,
That's either good or bad.
So basically, it's the consistent stairs with the original building, and is it the brick pilasters? Is that how you say it? That are extending out,
right,
to meet the stairs.
Right. Some of that has to be redone as well.
Okay. So where's this other $83,000? Do you have that money?
We have almost all of that money. We have, so it's a $500,000 campaign. We have over $300,000 in the bank at this point. We have pledges still of almost another $100,000 coming in. Not quite. We've got a challenge grant out there, so we're still working at it.
Thank you.
Awesome.
Commissioner Collette?
Oh, that's okay. That was
Okay.
very close to my question.
done?
So.
All right, thank you.
Okay, great, thanks.
Thanks, Karen.
Sorry, Counselor.
It's okay.
Okay, so the last one before the break is the Oregon City Tatashina Sister City.
Evening. My name's Rick Campbell, and I'm the chairperson of the Oregon City Tatashina Sister City Committee. And I currently live in Canby, although I lived in Oregon City when I joined the committee. As an expression of the sister city relationship, we have a peace garden at the Pioneer Community Center. And we've been slowly trying to improve that situation. We rebuilt the fountain a couple of years ago. And one of the issues with the Peace Garden is that it's all just strictly dirt. There's no secure, stable walkway. Since an awful lot of senior citizens are using the community center, we would like to put in concrete walkways. It would enhance the safety, it would enhance the looks. And as a future thing, we're planning on doing some better plantings, but that we're going to try to get done with volunteered material and donations. In addition, there are a couple of benches in the Peace Garden that are made out of some sort of artificial material, and they have slowly melted like an old Christmas cake through the years, where I don't think most people want to sit on them, and I don't believe they're safe. And I've discovered a source of some granite benches that would look great in a Japanese environment and be much more durable. So this is also kind of a partnership between the Sister City Committee and the Pioneer Center, in that they provide the land that the garden occupies, but the Sister City Committee tries to help maintain that space.
Okay. Questions? Nobody? All right. Thanks, sir. Well, we'll have time for one more then. The Oregon City Trail Alliance.
Good evening. I'm Shelley Batty. I'm a member of the Oregon City Trail Alliance and a resident of Oregon City. Oregon City Trail Alliance is in existence to try to make walking and cycling in Oregon City and its environments more appealing and more user-friendly for both our residents and visitors to the city. One of the shortcomings we've found are lack of bike parking. We have more and more cyclists coming down on the trolley trail or cycling through the area, and if they don't have a secure, attractive place to lock their bikes, they're less likely to stop and take advantage of our services and of our restaurants and our shopping. The proposal is the first step in solidifying a basic bike rack that is both attractive and pays homage to the history of Oregon City or cycling in Oregon City or the place that we find being so special. So the rack grant would be to, our match would be to do the research on designs and work with the Two Rivers Artists Guild to come up with a design that would be durable and usable, probably an insert for a basic U-rack, and then produce at least a few of them as samples and get them installed around the city in hopes that we would then have people interested to either purchase them to install more or do additional grants from other sources to make Oregon City very, very bike friendly and very, very bike rack friendly.
So I just want to point out a obvious error on the front page of the application. They have $80,740 in in-kind matching funds, and if you go to the budget, it's actually $8,740.
It is actually 8,000, and they Michelle contacted me, and I brought them a corrected copy. Did it never get to you?
Apparently not. That's not a big deal.
Yeah, no, there's
I missed
great.
that one, I guess. Sorry.
No, because she called me and she said it's wrong, and so I did it all over again and got it re-signed and brought it in. Sorry.
Okay, questions?
My bad.
Mr. Smith.
How many bike racks?
Based on the dollar amount, we're hoping to get 4 completely installed.
Okay. And when you say with an artistic insert, what does that mean?
This is the art teacher.
And how is the design? How will the designs be selected?
Okay. A good example of that is currently on the corner of 7th and Main. There is a U-shaped bike rack, and there is a bar piece in the center that says bike and has the shape of a bike on it. Take that basic design, and then we'll work with local artists to do something other than a generic bike.
Okay.
A picture of the elevator, a picture of the falls, a plaque that we could have installed there about the history of where the bike is located.
And the Trail Alliance then would go through the designs, or
The Trail
would-
Alliance working with the Two Rivers Artists Guild.
and possibly downtown Oregon
And
City.
possibly downtown Oregon City, and possibly the McLaughlin Memorial Association.
Possibly. Okay, great, awesome.
Anybody else?
So I guess I'm envisioning like a S-shaped bike rack with 2 decorative ends that have the sister.
No,
Okay.
a single U-shaped bike rack with the decorative insert inside it, and then that way, if you use just the basic U-shaped bike rack, then you can do multiples at an angle to each other, and in the same space that you'd put one of those S-shaped racks, you can get, instead of 3 bikes, you can get 6 in the same space and still have them not stick out into the line of travel for people that are walking.
So each of the U's would have a different, or have some art in it.
Have some art in it.
And then they'd be arranged so that it could hold up to 12 bikes, is that correct?
Depending on the space.
Okay.
If there was enough space for 3 of them, that would hold 6 bikes. And then you could make it a smaller space and only hold 4, or a larger space depending on the location.
And I had a question. So there's 8 locations that you said had already shown interest.
Had already shown interest.
So how are you going to pick who? Are you going to pick it by like who has more points, like more spread out, or whoever's going to help promote it more?
When we were first talking to local people, both that we went to and that came to us because of the need, 8 people were who stepped forward and said, yes, please, let's do this.
Yeah, if you got 4 or 6.
And if we don't have, and with luck, we'll get enough money that we'll get that done, or that the cost of making them will make that happen. But our primary spaces are like the Pioneer Center, because we know that they need them. We've been talking to the Parks Foundation about where else in the community might need them. And then there are a couple of restaurants that are very popular with local cyclists that don't have one yet. So it's going to be working with the planning department to see what locations we're going to be able to install for the amount of the grant.
So just out of curiosity, if you have a business that is popular with the bicycle crowd, why isn't the business buying the bike rack?
That's a good question. We're working on it.
Okay.
Yeah, and the primary is to do it places that, like Moot has someone that I've talked with, the end of the Oregon Trail, the Pioneer Center, and then if we settle on a design that's really attractive and we're putting it in some of those really popular places, then hopefully we will have businesses that step up and do want to buy them and do want to match. And
sure.
Have you considered doing like a big media thing of like, do you want to have one of these bike racks? And I mean, that's one way to promote it, is to have people clamor to be the one that you guys pick. Yeah. Okay. Just a thought.
Or to match it and partner with you to pay for them.
Yeah.
So
Right.
if people can kick in half, you could get twice as many.
Right. And this is our initial starting point, to find a design and find someone to manufacture it and do something that the city can be proud of, rather than going door to door and say, give us money for bike racks, when we don't have anything to show them.
Right.
You are just going to use a standard rack.
A standard
and the only
rack.
special is going to be that in it, because I mean that's going to go a lot faster.
Exactly.
when you do that.
And it's also much safer. And in researching artistic bike racks, if they get too artistic, people think they're artwork and don't want to lock their bikes to them. Or vice versa, you lock your bike to them and then someone who's not a cyclist complains because you're locking your bike to a piece of art.
You took away my other sheet.
Good evening. My name is Miranda Sierra. I am a residential property owner here in Oregon City. My husband's here somewhere. We're actually applying with Oregon City Wrestling Club. We're basically supporters. We are looking to basically create a baseline on our land, in our backyard. We're having an issue with a major transient problem, illegal dumping. So our goal at this point is to limit liability and execute some high impact solutions, which is why we brought Oregon City Wrestling Club into our proposal here. And a little background. We moved here about 3 years ago. We're a military family. My husband is a former CH-46 helicopter crew chief. We've moved around quite a bit. We have 3 children, and ranging from age 6 to 16. And we've kind of nestled ourselves in these small communities like Oregon City, and we've noticed that when these youth programs go under, they really don't come back. And Oregon City Wrestling Club, they have a need. My son is a youth wrestler, and we see the need. So what we're doing here is whatever we can to support their efforts to keep their youth program up and running. So on that note, I would like to hand it over to Chrissy Marshall. She's part of the wrestling club, and I think we have other members here as well.
What we're going to be doing, Christy Marshall, sorry.
Okay, sorry.
What we're going to be doing is providing the labor workers to help clean up Miranda and Mike's property, and then the wrestling club and the wrestling team at the high school actually will benefit, because we're going to have some of the money going towards purchase of a new mat, and then to help kids that need help with paying their fees for high school wrestling or trips that they want to go on with through the high school wrestling program and through the youth program. For our middle school age kids are eligible also. Our whole program is kind of one big program, so we support the high school team quite a bit.
And we've been working with code enforcement and law enforcement to, like I said, create a baseline, because at this point, we've got the ongoing dumping situation, we've got an insecure area, and there's illicit activity happening in and around our property, and we're ready to make it stop. At least move in that direction at this point.
Okay, so I'm trying to figure out why. I mean, I appreciate the fact you want to put these young folks to work. You know, that kind of gets them accountable and become part of the solution.
Yes, sir.
But the other side of that, maybe you would have come at us with, here's money for the mat.
It's for the mat. They haven't been able to purchase mats. It's my understanding in a long time. They
Right.
support a lot of low-income families, and like I said, we see it. We see the need. We see these children, and some of these guys, it's men and women. They support both. That's really all they have. There's really no other youth program in Oregon City that has stepped up to do that.
How much is the $15,000 the cost of the mats total, or
That's just a drop in the bucket. The wrestling program in general, they're looking for anything they can get help from the community. Donations are greatly appreciated, so and it's completely tax deductible.
Okay, so my question is kind of along the lines of Brian's, to figure out which part of the money is, because there's $15,000 in the grant assigned specifically to the mats, and then there is
The actual
$5,000 broken into $3,000 and $2,000 for basically working, or for the students.
Well,
so how much of that's going
it's
towards?
a credit towards student fees. It's pretty expensive, just fees in general. We also have the support of Major Doug Thomas and the Greater Oregon City Watershed Council, and at this point, those administrative fees, every penny of that is going towards reimbursing student fees, and the senior students who
The
are going to be.
2,000.
Which 2,000? I'm sorry, sir.
Well, there's two. It says minor student working wage $3,000. Then it says $2,000 where it says fee credit.
Exactly.
So $3,000 is going straight to the students. $2,000 is going for fees, and $15,000 is coming from us for mats. So
Correct.
how much of the student wages are going towards? You said they were contributing towards the mat. How much of the $3,000 then I guess it would be is going towards the mats?
You got it.
That was a question.
Oh.
How much?
Oh, how
of
you?
the $3,000
How much?
is going towards?
Oh, none of it. It's going to fees credit.
Okay,
The 15,000 is earmarked for the mats.
doesn't-
They
that
haven't
doesn't
been
make
able
sense.
to purchase. Those numbers, those figures are estimates. We're having. We're still soliciting donations from community members and businesses, and as far as I know, I know we've had at least 10,000 towards the mat efforts. But wrestlers, if they don't have mats, there's no program. There's nothing. They haven't been able to purchase mats. The ones they have are not safe,
Okay.
and
so,
it's a need.
my family has been involved in Oregon City High School wrestling for probably, way beyond I was alive.
Hey, there you go.
So I know greatly the need. So that's not my question. I think when we have people apply for these grants, sometimes they're making it more complicated than it is. If we need money for the mats, I would rather have the group come forward and say, give us $15,000 for the mats, and that's it.
Well,
but when it breaks down like this, so I asked, of the $3,000 going to students, how much is going to the mats? And you said none, but when you right before said part of that was. So I'm just trying to figure out.
I'm sorry,
what
maybe
money
I
is
didn't
going
understand
towards
the
what.
question. I'm sorry,
So
sir.
there's $15,000. It says specifically for mats, and you said that doesn't even, really pay for all of it, which I understand. And then there's two categories: minor student working. So it says in the grant that the students are going to get paid.
Only
which
the
is what,
students that are not going to, the senior students, whoever shows up.
But it says $3,000. So then you also and so Brian asked what that $3,000, whether some of that $3,000 was going towards the mats. And then there's another $2,000 that says student credit. So that's going towards their fees. I understand that. And the $3,000 that's going to the students, how much of that is going towards the mats?
Well, it would be a fees credit, so.
No, that's the $2,000 that's below it. That's a different.
Maybe I'm not understanding the.
Well, look at the budget.
Okay.
And
Okay.
it's broken down. There's $5,000 under personal services, $3,000 for student wages, and $2,000 says fee credits. So that's $5,000 total. So I'm assuming that the $2,000 is going towards student fees. that the 3,000 is paying them directly. Sounds like.
These are estimates.
Well, even then, you're still not telling me how much of it's going to the mats.
It says EGP sponsored wrestling mats.
No, that's 15,000. That's separate from above. That's $15,000 coming straight from us.
This is allocated for the stewardship project. This is the event. They're coming out.
What I'm saying?
Yes.
Am I? Maybe I'm not.
You've broken it up into different categories, so I'm assuming that $15,000 is just coming straight from us to the mats. You said that some of the student fees were going, or student money that was going to be paid was going towards the mats as well, because we don't have a problem with the students working. In fact, we think it's great as Optimist members when we get the clubs to work for the Optimist Club. We say we'll give you a $5,000 donation, but it's going not to those kids' pockets, but into your program.
Correct.
So I'm just asking that $3,000, is it going to the kids or is it going towards the mats? Because it says in the grant it's going to the kids.
The 3,000.
Yeah.
The ones
I guess we don't
putting
need to
the
ask
hours
anymore,
in.
'cause I'm not getting an answer.
This car's been on the roundabout for a couple minutes now, so.
Okay, I'm sorry.
I apologize. I'm.
Okay, and then that's not my last question. I have a. This is the second time this grant well, it's a different grant. The illegal dumping issue, I think, is a major issue that, as a city, we need to figure out how to deal with it. But still, the work's all happening on a private property, and so I think that the portion of the need for the wrestling kids is there, desperately needed. The project itself, which is the cleanup, is a great project and should be dealt with. But it's on private property, which really complicates it.
May I add that it's in a national or natural resources overlay district, 100%.
I just don't know how we deal with. I think this is a question that Michelle's been struggling with, maybe too.
Well, Hank, can I just, let me make a comment right here, if I can, because there's a letter dated May 5th, 2015, that says that we denied the grant request based on the fact that it's private property.
Right.
And so what it looks like to me is we tried to do an end run around the rules by hooking up with the wrestling club and somehow trying to paint this as something other than what you're talking about.
The last year's proposal was a cry for help, and I've been working with Michelle or Miss Benville and saying, hey, what do? We've been working with law enforcement, code enforcement's been out, there's a letter associated. We're at a point now to where I don't know what else to do.
Well, and I understand that, and we all understand that we have, a transient issue that we're desperately working on, like many other communities. I mean, just came back from the U.S. Conference of Mayors, and this is an issue in every city, large or small, throughout the country. But at the same time, we're talking about public dollars.
Exactly.
So we have to be, and so spending public dollars on a private property, no matter what the issue is troublesome for us. Now, I have one more question while I'm got everything here, because I'm a little confused about where you're talking about, because you say it's on 507 Cascade, yet there's a map here that has an area circled on outlined at Pearl and 7th, or Pearl and Moalis, so I'm confused.
I'm sorry, which map are you looking at? Can you make a reference to
the
it?
plat map that comes just after the color map. So I think we got two different maps here, because there's Cascade. Oh, I see it down the very bottom right here.
Right. Yeah.
If you may, we've had
so you didn't
former
highlight
Mayor
it in the
Doug Neely at the property, and I don't know if he may be willing to comment on it.
Questions?
More comments.
Councilor Collette?
Well, I'm having I think the same difficult time you're having with connecting up with the environmental program is versus the wrestling mat.
Yeah.
The wrestling mat doesn't seem to me to qualify as something that would get this kind of a grant. The environmental program could, as a youth training program, but not on private property. So
here's how I think. I mean, if the wrestling club would have came and proposed a grant of cleanup in some area of the city and asked for the same thing, it probably would have been a lot better. I think that the illegal dumping issue should be dealt with, but that should be dealt with on a city level.
Excuse me, sir. May I note that it is the wrestling program that is applying for this?
I understand that, but they're not going to be able to do this on a private property. So what I'm saying is they would have had a better chance with that grant if it was for a public property. So I see that as a separate thing. The illegal dumping issue is a huge issue, and even on private property, I think the city should be dealing with figuring out ways to resolve.
This is the first time I've heard anything about it. So.
Me too. Well, other than we heard it through the other grant, but.
Last year's grant didn't even come to you guys.
Right.
Well, yeah, but I remember it.
Any further questions or comments? Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Now we have Rivers of Life, Clackamas Community College. Jerry, you got 3 minutes.
Jerry.
It's not there. It's us. That's going to take.
Well,
we got 15.
How many minutes do I have?
If it walks like a duck.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor and Commissioners. My name is Jerry Herman. I'm a resident of Gladstone, and my partner here,
Doug Thomas. I'm a resident of Canby, and I teach at Oregon City High School and run the junior ROTC program.
This project called Environmental Learning Center Enhancement Project is an effort to build upon something you funded last year, which I wasn't totally aware of all the aspects. Your funding of $25,000 last year helped the college pay all the land use fees and other engineering costs to bring forth the Metro Enhancement Grant to finally then begin the process of rehabilitating the site. Now, the site of the Environmental Learning Center I know very well is 15 acres, not 4. And so there's an additional 8 acres adjoining the Environmental Learning Center behind what used to be the Smucker's plant and such that Metro could not address because it did not actively have ponds and other wetland type characteristics, but it has a stream corridor. When we started looking at the site with the college's request for me to help them do this, and by the way, I donated my time for the last year or so on this effort, we found over 10,000 plants that don't have to be purchased, that are good native plants that happen to have gotten established on site that can be used again in rehabilitating the site for the Metro Enhancement Project, but also can be used to align along 6,000 more lineal feet of trail. You know, there's 12,000 feet of trail up there. About 6,000 feet of trail is going to be enhanced with a Metro Project grant, Nature and the Neighborscaping grant, but the other 6,000 lineal feet of trail were not going to be addressed. And our hope with this effort involving the junior ROTC folks from the senior high school, volunteers, which we now have about 40 people that showed up over 6 Saturdays to help clean up the site for the college's 50th year celebration here on May 21st. We now have enough manpower from these 2 resources to save plants, enhance trails that wouldn't get enhanced, and ultimately over the next year make the site a lot more approachable from the standpoint of the major work that's going to happen without damage to the site. In other words, saving the materials we feel is prudent, involving the community, having students get scholarships from the college. That was my deal. If I involve students, you'll see some of them, I think, behind me in their white shirts. I want those students to be eligible for scholarships from the college. If I'm donating my time, my cost will be, can you consider giving those people an opportunity to get foundation-supported scholarships? So that's going to happen. That's all been put in place. So we're going to recycle. The mayor was very good about questioning some of those facts on previous grants. 4,000 yards of material are already on site that have come from Oregon City pickup programs, where yard debris was picked up in Oregon City. It's been composted by the college up there, and now it represents the material to overcover all the acreages that I talked about that the Metro grant are not going to take care of. So we feel that the project is prudent in terms of saving materials, involving manpower from places that wouldn't get involved necessarily, and community volunteers, and ultimately putting back to use materials from your community, like the yard debris, for some constructive purpose.
Okay. Questions?
So primarily, you'll be harvesting native plants in the area that's not covered by the Nature Neighborhoods grant that Metro gave?
It's amazing. There's a lot of native plants that were missed that are both in the footprint of where the Nature and the Neighbors Escape grant was funded, but also adjoining lands that would be needed to access improvements in the ponds of the project. Those areas, if we salvage the materials now, can be used again.
And you'll be able to pay the kids to help work on this as well as help them get scholarships.
And then the young people will have a chance to receive work stipends and also get scholarships.
Jerry, how does this improve the safety within the city?
Well, I'm glad you asked that. You know, Newell Creek Watershed starts on the college campus, and it seems like the transient movement, and I'm not talking about your dock, that's a transient dock, okay, where vessels pull in and move back and forth. The transient movement now, there's a lot of people living in Newell Creek Canyon, and that was beginning to appear on the college campus in the area adjoining the LC. And the thinning and massive pruning that we're going to do, which will prepare the site for more work, will open it up for far more visibility. The site is quite overgrown compared to what it was back in the early 90s when I was still there.
So along that same line, how does this enhance art and culture within the city?
I'm glad you asked. The Environmental Learning Center project was a project growth right out of the art department. And the art students did the design work. I was one of those students. The sculptural design, which represented the size of the site exactly, was made in the sculpture classes, and art students still use the grounds of the LC for some art projects. Now, by opening it up and improving it more for public functions, we think the art aspect will come back. It was an art project. It wasn't an ecological project. It was an art project back in the 1970s and 80s.
Okay. Any other questions? All right. Thanks, sir.
Thank you, Jerry.
Thank you.
Okay, coming down to it. The Three Rivers Arts Guild.
Linda Orzen, Oregon City resident, and one of the founding members of the Three Rivers Artists Guild. Last fall, we had a discussion amongst our board members about whether or not we should bring a large community event to Oregon City. And we felt we're almost 10 years old. We've been involved in numerous other events, coordinating other events in Oregon City, and it's time that we do something on our own for the whole community. We are artists, but we are also business people. We're members of the Chamber of Commerce. We're very active in the Chamber. We also work with nonprofit people. So we're bringing nonprofits to the area. We're also working with the heritage community. At this time, we all put on a plein air event out at the Rose Farm every year. We've put on a very successful holiday show at the Pioneer Center every year. So this event is going to be bringing together the arts community, heritage community, tourism, and everything else that makes Oregon City great. Questions? And I'm excited.
I got some questions.
I'm excited.
So I really enjoyed when I first moved to this area, the First City Arts Fair.
Yes.
So my question is, how is this going to be different in that? And my apologies that I don't know why that doesn't happen anymore. So I was curious as to why that's not happening. And then this is a
good question.
Yeah.
Very good question. The First City Arts Fair was held under the Arts Commission of the City of Oregon City way back when. Yes, it was.
The one at the Carnegie Center was, but not after the
Then
fact.
it was also underneath the city, because we went through the city.
Let's not argue about that. Let's
Anyhow,
just move on.
After 2 years, we were at the Carnegie Center, and we were then asked if we would be willing to move down to the end of the Oregon Trail Interpretive Center. We had grown. So yes, that seemed like a logical
Yeah.
change for us. We did that for 3 years and burnt out, total burnout. So because we had so many artists in Oregon City and no organization, the Three Rivers Artists Guild was formed. And from there, we just started putting together different art events. We've always had a small art gallery somewhere. It used to be over at the Friends of the Library bookstore. Now it is at the Singer Hill Cafe. Extremely successful. But we have, that's it. That's the answer to your question.
So
Yeah.
fresh blood. Fresh blood.
Fresh blood.
Fresh
Fresh
blood.
blood.
And then
Yes, yes.
the other question was, from a marketing, of course, standpoint, Festival of the Arts. So you're calling it Oregon City Festival of the Arts, but the Lake Oswego one is called Festival of the Arts.
Everybody
too, right?
is copying
That's all
us. We were the first. We came up with this last year.
Yeah. So yeah,
We've been marketing it since last year.
Oh, great.
Since November of last year, we've been marketing this.
Well, it's good to know that that you have some changes between First City and Arts
Right,
Fair,
right.
and
So
it's
that event
new
was
organization.
so successful. And after it was no longer there, I had a lot of artists that had participated in that and said, why aren't we doing this again? This was such a wonderful event. So you'll be seeing artists that were at that event and a lot of brand new artists also.
I'm not
Questions?
seeing the check off of the. all
Yeah,
the-
it's missing.
Yeah, it's missing.
Okay.
So the check off of what goals it meets, page, I don't know which page it is, there's page 4 and 5 missing on the application. So the checklist of what goals it meets, we don't have.
Right.
Oh, it is the goal number 10, enhance art and culture within the city. Is that what you're looking for, 7A?
Yeah,
Yes.
what else is checked on there, because we don't
That's
see
it?
that.
Is it
That's-
just the
that's
one?
only
Just the one.
Okay,
I
gotcha.
didn't want to check every box.
Okay.
I read the
It definitely
instructions.
fits that one.
You've been here before.
Okay, so any
I have
other
a
questions?
yeah.
I could have checked a few more, but I just wanted to stay within
Commissioner Smith?
my
So you're
box.
asking for small amounts, 2,000.
Yes.
But I'm confused because there's you submitted your actual event budget too,
Right.
which is helpful. But the $2,000 on the grant request is broken up between shuttle and public safety, which then I assumed in your budget was transportation and the reserve officer, but that
Correct.
totals $3,500.
Right. So that's
you
just
would
partial.
so we would partially be
Right,
funding
right,
that.
right. Mhm.
Is all the vendors in the parking lot?
No.
Okay.
We are on the grounds.
So the full parking lot is available.
The full parking
The
lot is
reason I ha-
available. We are going to be using a shuttle service. Jerry Herman is going to be our shuttle service.
From where?
And we're going to be using the parking lot, the city parking lot on 15th. I'm going to be talking to Providence, see if we can use their parking. Abernathy Center for their parking. We need off-site parking.
What,
This is
what parking lot? The city doesn't have a parking lot on 15th. The Willamette Falls.
Education Center.
Yeah, that's
You do
Providence.
have
No, that's Providence.
Providence,
Yeah, it's Willamette
Providence.
Falls.
But the city has a parking lot.
The city has a parking
On
lot
12.
at 12th, just south of the.
Okay,
At
12.
12.
Yeah.
I'm 3 numbers off.
So I'm curious because the concerts in the park have moved
Right.
without a shuttle
Right.
and use all the parking lots
But
around there.
it's only for 2 hours. We're going for the whole weekend.
True.
And I don't want to have cars parking on the street and causing hazards, traffic hazards.
Got it. Thank you.
Anybody else? All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Last up, VFW Post 1324.
Mr. Mayor, Commissioners. I will try to be succinct,
Even brief.
as brief as I can. My name is DJ Ruger. I'm the commander of VFW Post 1324 here in Oregon City. I live just outside the city in Clackamas County.
I am Regina Bedeker. I am first-year trustee, and I live in Oregon City.
We've come to you for this grant request to help us finish a project that we have been working very, very hard on for the last several years. As you know, the Post has been in Oregon City since 1925. We built the building that we're in. Everybody knows the building that's right behind your museum in 1949.
I think you could almost call the building iconic, but moving on.
You may if you wish, Mr. Mayor. We've had a concerted effort to restore this building, to repair it, restore it, and present it to the next generation of veterans so they have a home. It also has a lot of public use, but the primary objective is so they have a home. These young veterans that are going overseas now are doing 5, 6 tours, and they need a place to be with other veterans who've been overseas. We inherited from our fathers, and we see it as a duty to pass it on to them better than we found it. Now, we have managed to get grants from the county in the past 2 years. We've gotten help from Home Depot in the past 2 years. We've stopped the roof leaks. We've re-sided the building. We've remodeled the kitchen. The enhancement grant we are hoping to use in cooperation with Renewal by Anderson, who's already stepped up and offered to donate the windows to finish the front of the building, the facade that's most visible, replace the 1949 wood frame single pane windows on the front of the building, and finish this project. This is what we've come here to ask you for, and I hope we'll get your support.
So I'm going to ask you a question that maybe
Yes, sir.
you haven't.
Recycling.
No,
But you can answer that.
No, it's
nice try and anticipated my question. However,
sustainability, I think it is, isn't it?
No. Have you been to the Historic Review Board?
No, sir.
Well, that's a question, because replacing windows in a historic structure is going to have to go through the Historic Review Board.
Is it not registered? Okay, so that was my question.
So it wouldn't have to go to the Historic Review Board, Doug?
It's not registered.
Oh, okay.
But
all right. Well, then that
just
old,
not registered.
Should be.
So I have.
Yes, Rocky.
So I drove by the building. It looks great. So you're talking about the front facade and the windows, but it looks like has the front facade mostly been done except for the windows?
This grant is specifically
Just
for
the
the
windows.
10 old windows on the front of the building that will finish the appearance of the front of the building.
So I think it was an important question because it's a 1949 building, which is not registered on the historic registry, but you used the word restore multiple times, and in the grant it says these new modern windows will help preserve the historic heritage of the building. Now, that's a stretch because new windows don't do that. Other than the fact that it protects, and knowing from the Irma Tinger House, part of why the Irma Tinger House was falling down was because the windows weren't sufficient and water was getting in and damaging the building. So I'm weighing the historic nature of the building with new windows that don't really do that, and how
the appearance of the windows will be very similar to what they are now. If you've seen the one that was replaced on the backside of the canteen by the stairs, it's a slide up and down window. It maintains the same appearance for the building, except it's double pane. It's modern. It's not.
So are the casements vinyl, or are they wood?
I believe they are vinyl.
Okay.
Okay.
Any other questions? Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, so now we're going to give our rankings to Ms. Benville, and we're going to take, how long do you need, 10 minutes?
Well, I'm hoping not 10 minutes. I'm hoping 5, but
Okay.
I have inputted your pre-rankings, and if you don't have any changes, please do not give me your sheet. If you have changes, please give me your sheets. Once I rank them, I'll sort it and put in the amount of the grant request, and we can see, once you're ready, where everything lands.
Okay.
Are we going to have a discussion before we see the scores?
If you want to, we can. Do you feel that's appropriate or necessary?
I do. And mainly because I think we should have a conversation about grants that didn't meet their matching requirements. So if we are going to, there's a requirement for matching our funds.
Right.
And I don't think that all the grants met that. So I would hate to rank and score and announce the order in which we valued them if we don't have a discussion about how we're going to deal with ones that didn't meet the match.
Okay.
Is that an Oregon City requirement, the match?
I don't know.
The match has been in place ever since I've been involved with the program.
Can you remind us exactly what that is?
And so in the grant information, it talks about a match, and it's typically a percentage of the project.
And I know it's flexible. We can change. We can.
Through the years.
We don't have to follow it, but it's a
guideline. It's when I look at them, I look at the grant award piece of it, and that they're meeting the match of the grant award, because it's been one of those things that's been in place for years and never is really through the process been revisited, and making an adjustment from the committee level to that piece, speaking to that piece.
Okay, I think we should at least decide if we're going to honor that or be flexible on that before we go.
So let's take 5 minutes, give her a chance. What
do we know what that percent was?
I don't. I don't know.
It
what
sounds
it was.
to me like a guideline rather than a requirement.
Don't say that.
Well, that's what Michelle said.
It's in the supporting material of the of your packet under the grant information for the year. It's, I believe, page 3 or 4.
Perhaps
That's
it would
a
be
great
helpful to
line in
know.
Pirates of the Caribbean, by the way.
What?
It's
merely
the first,
guidelines. They're merely guidelines.
Yeah, your 2016-17 grant information. It's the packet that's advertised.
So, Rocky, have you
No,
analyzed
I
which
didn't.
ones don't?
I don't know, but I.
So, are we taking this time to make that adjustment or discussion?
No, let's go ahead and take your time. Take the time to have you rank that, and then we can come back and have a general discussion about Commissioner Smith's concerns, and then we'll move forward with. Everybody, make sure your mics are on, please.
Okay, we're started.
Okay, so before we look at the rankings, there's sort of a technical question that we want to answer for ourselves about the match and what that actually means. So, Commissioner Smith, why don't you start the ball rolling here?
Okay, so what it comes down to is the enhancement program guidelines or information, which we're all on, I think. The question of the match in the actual guidelines says total project cost, which it says that it breaks it down into how much the total project is, and says that these grants have to meet a certain percent depending on where their total project is. I think the question is, have we always done that? Because I think people have been confused over the matching the total project cost, and what I think this group has done in the past, which is match the actual grant total. So before we can decide which grants fit, we need to decide: are we doing what it says in our guidelines, which says total project cost, not the grant cost? So we have to have that conversation.
Councilor Collette?
Well, and I went through and because I do these things, I calculated which of the grant applications were shy of that matching grant based on the total project cost, and there were only 2 of them. But that because we have not in the past used total project cost, even though it says in the guidelines, I'm going to recommend that we not enforce this particular rule here. There may be other reasons to reject a couple of these, but unless you don't have to second my motion.
He can. Or yeah.
Well, that
But
wasn't what I was
we've been a
groaning
little
about, but-
unclear about how it's been implemented. And I think we also need to revisit the numbers, because what I understand is we no longer give grants
Grants that
over
high.
a certain amount, so.
So the problem I have with.
But that's not referring to the grants, referring to
The total
project,
project
yeah.
cost, right.
And the problem I have, and Commissioner Smith are on the same page on this this theory, or what we talk about, in that words actually mean things. And so if we look at the paragraph just preceding this matrix, it says project programs shall have the following requirements for an additional funding source, either in kind or actual dollars, and prior to making application for an EGP grant, the additional funding source shall be documented within the application. So when we say shall twice in a sentence or in a paragraph, that I think that's what it means. So if it's sort of like the old saying, ignorance of the law is no excuse. I mean, this is here. Everyone had the same set of rules to go by, and it's my understanding that some of these groups actually reduced their request to be able to meet this matrix. So I think the rules are the rules. Now, that's certainly open to interpretation to the rest of the committee, and I would welcome any conversation about that.
I think if everybody else was working hard to follow that.
You need your microphone? You don't usually need a microphone.
I don't. Thank you. Good night, Chicago. Hey, I know I've only done one grant myself, and it's so hard, and to do all that work to fit into guidelines word by word, it needs to be respected, I think.
And so one compromise might be that we wouldn't throw out the grants that didn't meet their match, but we would reduce the grant amount so that they meet that criteria.
Okay.
It would be tricky to calculate because it's based on the total project costs, and unless they can reduce what they view as their total project costs.
No, we would reduce the amount that we might award to
Okay.
be the proper amount.
Okay.
So the difference between the in-kind, or between whatever it would take to get them to that that's what we would take off of what the grant would be.
Yes.
I could live with that.
Yeah, I could too.
Okay, I will calculate that.
Okay. As our human calculator is functioning on that, I think we need to talk. I know there was at least one of these that I couldn't fund at all. So let's start down there at that end. Is there anything right there that you thought was just ineligible?
I do think it's hard because I've been neighborhood sheriff for 2 neighborhoods, and it is hard to deal with issues on neighbors' property and want to make a difference, and if they don't help you, it's kind of hard too as well. So anything on private property, I do think we'd have to pass on that.
Any additional thoughts on that?
I agree with Ray.
I agree as well.
Okay. So we are talking about the
Oregon City Kids Wrestling Club number 15.
right. So I would entertain a motion to that effect.
I move striking Oregon City Kids Wrestling Club proposal from consideration.
I second that, and I second you. I mean, I don't know if you have been working with your neighborhood association for help. That I suggest if you haven't already, then that you do.
Any further discussion? So we're going to do this by acclamation because I'm pretty sure I know where everybody is. So all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. So is there any other one that anybody thinks should be pulled from consideration?
I have concerns about number 11, Oregon City High School Band and Pete's Cruise-In. The event has been going on for a very long time, and the stated use of the funds is to have the kids go to Hawaii.
I agree. That's not an appropriate use of the funds.
Discussion?
But are the benches?
The benches are not in they're not in the grant request.
Okay.
No thoughts, Commissioner Smith?
I think I've said I just want to say, I mean, I think it's sad because I think that, you know, we all understand how important these programs are. But if they don't fit the requirements, it's very hard for us to grant them, and I feel sick about it. But
right. And as big a supporter as I am of the JRTC program, and everybody knows that I am, when I was in high school, I was in the marching band, and we took trips to Victoria and other things, and what we did is we raised the money to go on those trips, whether it was through parents or, you know, car washes or whatever. That's what we did, and I'm certain there was probably some district money that came back then that it probably isn't available today. But on the other hand, I think, you know, we also have to fit into those, you know, basic rules that we've all agreed to.
I think it's just simply making sure that the grant applies to what it is, and you know, I think both of those grants could have come forward and fit our requirements very well and have been fully funded, but there were certain pieces of them that didn't quite make sense, and that's why we're where we're at.
Well, and we have limited funds here, and so we do have to make some choices here.
So is there a motion?
I would move to strike number 11, Oregon City High School Band and Flag, JROTC.
I'll second that.
So moved by Commissioner Shaw, seconded by Councilor Collette. Is there any further discussion? So all those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries. Oh, all opposed? Okay, so motion carries. Anything else?
Do you want me to give you the new calculated amount?
Why, sure.
So the number 13, the Oregon City Tadashina Sister City Committee needed $1,032 more to meet their match. So reducing the potential grant request, that amount would leave them a grant of $8,808 if we do go forward. And then the number 18, the Veterans of Foreign Wars Post 1324, similarly needed $1,424 more to meet their match. So reducing their total request by that amount gives them a potential grant of $13,920. And someone else might want to do the math afterwards.
No, that's fine.
But I doubled it, so
I was
think I'm
going
there.
to offer a suggestion here, and that is that we begin by reducing those grants by that amount, but we leave it the possibility open for them to come back with additional match. And if they do that, then we can get them to their full. Is everybody okay with that?
Absolutely.
Yeah, because I think both of these, neither of these probably took full advantage of the kind of matching that they will have from the community. So
right,
it's not that big a dollar amount to calculate out.
So if we take the two off and change the two there, where are we at in terms of the?
So I will say with this spreadsheet, it's not easy just to take the two off. So what I can do is we've got the rankings in there, and I think let me just look at it real quick.
Most of us probably ranked them
at the end. Just looking at the way it plays out, it lays out that those two projects were at the lowest.
Okay.
The two
So then we don't need to worry about it.
So, you know, I can put zero funding in for that, and then you can see where the dollars land
that works.
At that point.
Okay.
So,
yeah,
if you're ready, I can throw that up on the screen.
Proceed.
And that'll take a second.
you go like this. Oh, I hate spreadsheets.
Where are we looking? You have to flip this switch.
More of a policy guy.
On the floor.
That's what I have Wyatt for.
I don't do numbers.
There you go.
So it takes a minute, it'll start warming up and you'll be able to see it a little bit better.
Okay, so that's the order.
So that's how the ranking's laid out, and I plugged in the grant award request under tentative reward, and that would get you to your dollar amounts. So if I place the tentative award for those last two at 0, you can see where the final amount is. No, it doesn't total because we've dropped 31,000.
So we still
Well,
need.
can't you make that that cell a total of that column M? That would total that out.
Yeah, just do a sum.
Oh, you mean right here?
Right
Yeah.
there.
Yeah.
Some. There you go.
There we go.
And we have how much?
210? Is that right?
Yep.
Yes.
210,704.
So you could do a self.
No, that's the matching, sorry.
The total in C and subtract that and put it there. And that
So-
way you'll know how close we are.
44,000.
So we've got basically $44,000
$44,000.
less money than we have grant requests. So I'm not seeing how. Oh, there's the average. Okay, all right, all right.
So there's a couple ways of doing it.
I'm willing to listen to suggestions.
Well, one way to do it would be to just cut it off. Another way to do it would be to reduce some of the grant requests, not give everybody their full amount. We've already talked about reducing it by about 2,500, not much, just in terms of those two grants.
No, that's 31,000.
No, I mean the 2,500 that of the matching. If we took out the matching, or is that
Oh.
already in there? Did you change
I'm
those
sorry.
numbers?
I'm
sorry. Well, the two that didn't have the match.
Okay, I can
Did-
reduce those amounts.
That's just one way to reduce it, but that's only 2,500. That's not a whole lot.
And I think given, no, let's not do that.
Okay.
Because I think given the two organizations that we're talking about, the likelihood
They're
is
gonna
they're going to
get
be
it.
able to come up with
I
their
think
matching
so.
funds.
I think so, too.
So
So
the amount that you're over in requests is 44,408, yeah. 44,483.
So one of the ways that this has been done before is just an across the board, reduction for everybody. Unfortunately, some of these are fairly small, and that would, greatly impact, would be not as fair to some of the smaller grant requests as it would be to the larger requests. I am more of a fan of making a hard decision. So, we don't really have, there really isn't a clear cut. Is this your average? I can't really tell.
So
Is it the lowest number, or is it the highest number?
It's the lowest, it ranks from the lowest number, which is 1 in your ranking
Oh,
is
okay.
your,
All right.
your
Right.
project
This is your
that
best
meets
project.
the
Ranks
most
you.
goals and criteria, 1 through 18. So 1 is your top, all the way down to 18, being the lowest or the one that least meets the goals.
So,
44,000.
if we, so that's 27. So if we just said everything that ranked 10 or higher, we weren't going to fund, that would get us there.
Or,
Or,
well, because some do come in, but
what do you mean?
we could fund a couple of those under the running total if we wanted to go to 210. If we want to spend it all. Or we could reduce some of the bigger grants.
Let's not have any whispering. If we're going to talk,
Yeah.
let's
Exactly.
talk.
Talk out.
Put your mic in front of you.
What percentage do you have to take off in order?
Good job, everybody.
Hang on.
That's
So I'm listening to what the group has to say. Do you want to do an across the board? I think, we all spent a lot of time and effort looking at all these things and figuring out and hearing what folks had to say tonight, and we came out with a ranking. So,
even if we were to say we took 10% or some kind of a percentage off of each one, even the people that had a $2,000 would only be like $200 or so.
Mm-hmm.
Mayor, if I could, I imagine your original assessment, there could, as you probably suspect, there could be some complexity in terms of reducing the scope of each project. That might be difficult for folks to actually have the project underway. So if you take 10% off of each project, conceivably that could threaten all of the projects being able to be completed. So I guess I would recommend from a staff perspective that the cutoff approach that we've taken is how we've established things in the past.
Okay.
It might be less complicated.
But we have talked to people about being able to reduce what their request is.
True.
In order to get some folks funded.
And the group does have a little bit of opportunity to use some of the carryover funds if that would be decided to do. That's also an option, but that isn't what we advertised to begin with. So.
Commissioner Smith?
Don't do that.
Well, you just gave heaped a big sigh, so I figured you had something to say.
That's right.
It doesn't necessarily mean I have something to say.
You're a historian here. You're the guy that's been here the longest. How you do this?
There's no easy way to do it.
No.
Well, I actually think the easiest way to do it is to say anything that didn't rank, anything that ranked lower than 10, we fund, and anything that ranked 10 or above, we don't fund. That's the simplest, easiest, most democratic way to do it, and that gets us to the number, right? What's the, Ms. Benville, what is the total of your
So
column M up to line?
It's the running total.
So it would be your running total, and if you're looking at everything under 10, so the last one would be the Three Rivers Artists Guild of 2,000. Your running total is 179,143.
We have 210.
So we could
potentially to
fund,
spend.
and see, the problem I have there is that if we, because the numbers came out where they did, is it fair to fund, number 14 and then not fund 15?
When they're ranked.
When they're ranked exactly the same.
Right.
Yeah.
I believe we'd have additional funds to cover that difference. It's a pretty slight difference. If you
So
wanted
you're
to include both of those
suggesting-
projects.
So you're suggesting we fund through number
Through 10.
15.
Sorry, I keep putting the mouse in the way.
I'm looking at the running total. I'm
Through
not
line
sure, but-
15.
Yeah, I'm looking at the running total. Yes.
Through line 15, right.
Correct.
So we're talking about,
Everybody 10 and under.
yes. And you're suggesting that extra $6,000 is not a big deal out of the enhancement budget?
That's correct, Mayor.
Okay. So is everybody okay with, are we going to have a discussion? We're going to have a motion.
I move that we fund all of the projects rated 10 or lower, which would be up to line 15 on our chart here.
I second that motion.
Now, is there any further discussion?
Well, as always, there's so many good projects, and this is always such a difficult choice, but I think this is as fair a process as we can do.
Right. I mean, we listen to everyone. We've all had an opportunity over the last couple of weeks to study all the projects, and we did a blind ranking, so nobody else knew what anybody else was ranking things.
Right.
And the numbers came out the way they came out. So, the likelihood is that as we go forward in the next few years, this process could change in some fashion as we get closer to the Lamp Falls Legacy Project and those kinds of things. So going forward, I need all of you folks to understand that this process may not be the same way forever as we get closer to getting some of these big projects online. We've got a motion and a second on the table. Is there any further discussion?
I just want to thank everybody for their input here and your programs. You're just a great asset for the city, and please understand that this is quite a process for us here. So I hate to think that there's going to be more tipping fees. That means more garbage going into the. We don't want to see that, but we appreciate all your efforts here. So.
I also just want to reiterate that there are some Metro Nature and Neighborhood grants available for things like habitat, education around the habitat and nature. They're called Nature and Neighborhoods programs. You can find them at OregonMetro.gov. I think it's /grants. Again, that's a limited and tapering off amount of money, but there is some of these projects look like they could be funded by that. I was really pleased this year to see there were a lot of new applicants.
Yeah.
We've been hoping for new applicants. We've been trying to send the message that this isn't ongoing funding for existing programs or maintenance. It's really, the idea is to bring in new community interest and engage the community. And Oregon City is amazing. The volunteer work that goes on in this community is just amazing. It's every year I am just moved, and it is always so difficult to make these choices. Last year we got a free ride because we had more money than we had applicants, but this year that's not the case. So I want to encourage people to continue to work in your communities. It's great stuff you're doing, and to the degree that we can, we're pitching in.
I was really encouraged to see so many diverse applications. We really did hit on a lot of the criteria in the grant. We had tourism, we had watershed restoration, we had tourism events, all kinds of things, which is great. We want to see that. And a lot of the applications had a lot of partnership and support from the community, which is wonderful to see as well. So thank you, everyone, for your hard work on this.
So I would say to the two groups that the Alliance Charter Academy and the Tatashina Sister City group, I think I would encourage you to get with Carlotta and see if there's a way that, because I think those two things could be possibly funded through that Natures in the Neighborhood Grants program.
Right.
So we have a motion and a second on the table. Is there any further discussion? Then we're going to formally call the roll on this one.
Leslie?
Yes.
Brian?
Yes.
Dan?
Aye.
Renata?
Yes.
Rocky?
Aye.
And Carlotta?
Yes. You forgot Ray. Did you forget Ray?
Ray is gone.
Oh.
So
Didn't see her leave.
we can't really record her vote, but we have a unanimous vote at this point, so we'll just record Ray as absent.
Ray Gordon has left the building. Sorry, I couldn't help that.
Okay. So I believe.
So all the other items on the agenda are supporting material unless
Right.
you have any questions. As a staff person who's been doing this for several years, this committee meeting once a year has been, it's a great committee because it only meets once a year. However, with this increase in tipping fee that has been negotiated and the new IGA and everything, I would say that it's probably needs to be looked at over the next year and making adjustments and bringing a group in and maybe even in this process of breaking it down to a couple of meetings, but also revisiting, like I said, not the IGA, but the bylaws and the criteria for the grant. Because that's been something that's been in place since I've been involved. Yeah. We've work sessioned it. We have a work session every 3 or 4 years.
Well, I think the way to look at this is that, you know, we're in an election cycle now. So as Commissioner Smith reminded me that we will typically do our actual 2-year goal setting session in January or February of this coming next year. Our new commissioners will be seated at that point, and then we'll have a general discussion at the retreat, and then we can have a work session or two going into the spring about how we're going to change the system before we put the grants out again.
That sounds great, Mayor. And just to speak to that, thank you for the insight, Michelle. It's great to make those recommendations on your way out. I like that. No, I think they're great.
Well, this is the first year that
totally ribbing you. You're so right.
And all the new projects. I was amazed at all the new groups that came out.
Yeah, I just wanted to comment from an administrative standpoint. I want to thank some of the folks that came up from the audience and pointed out some things about where we can clarify some of the language in the letter that went out, and also made a note about clarifying that match language. And so we'll have these as items that we can discuss. And I think when I first started that year, we did have this group get together and talk about some of these open items, and we can certainly do that again. So,
but in the total context of that conversation that we have next year, there's certainly a possibility that we won't have this process at all, just because of the discussions we may have at the commission level and with Carlotta about going forward because of the different major projects that we have coming, like the Willamette Falls Legacy Project.
Well, we do have an IGA that governs how the money can be allocated, so I don't know that we can. I haven't read it in a little while. I don't think we could
that's something
dissolve the grant program and only give it to 1 or 2 projects, for example.
But that will be part of the discussion.
Yeah, agreed, Mayor. So we have the IGA with Metro and how we use the funds, and so there's going to be some type of process like this. Although there's some different options that we can talk about as a group when that.
Well,
comes
we don't
up.
do anything without, as a lot of process. So.
And if I could, I just feel really compelled to thank everyone that was here, as you all have. It's just really great to see the turnout and the amazing support for the community. I think you all made that clear, but you all sat here for 3 hours. And there was standing room only in the back for a little while, and appreciate your patience with the process because we had twice as many grant requests as we've ever had in the past. And so there was a little bit of shuffling. I think everyone did a great job, and just want to thank you so much for your support. I know that this group, the commission here, really appreciates it very much. So thank you.
And thank Michelle again, too.
You're welcome. And those of you that receive funding, you will be hearing from me. I'm receiving documentation for that, and I appreciate all your help and working with you on these grants throughout the years.
So
and you guys.
Who's going to be your replacement, or is that not known yet?
I can speak to that a little bit as well. So we are prepared to have a recruitment for a position partially funded by this program, but also some additional support under the umbrella of the Economic Development Department. Because as you know, the Mayor and Commission of Oregon City have established certain guidelines related to tourism and some other programs. So we're patching together.
So didn't we make a budget adjustment to give Eric an assistant?
And that's in the works. So
yeah. Okay.
Yes, we've got a couple of recruitments for department heads and such like that. But we're going to have that person come on board. And it takes a couple months, and then Michelle, I'm going to say on record that Michelle has graciously said to me in private that she would come back in a couple of months and do some tutoring and mentoring to that person, and I think for this program.
And her big party is tomorrow.
And the big party's tomorrow at 3.
I can't make it.
Yeah. Thank you.
Okay, if there's nothing else for the good of the order, we're adjourned.